Okay, since you're a scientist, I'm really interested in your input in the following subject. The futurist Ray Kurzweil has proposed a term that he calls the singularity. By that he means the moment at which man and machine melt into one. That is, that man and his mechanical inventions become one unit. He's also convinced that the singularity will happen within the century.
Mm-hmm.
And would you please speculate what the implications for humanity might be should the singularity come to pass?
Wow. I guess that's not a good enough answer. That is a fascinating subject. And this is one I've not thought about really before. So let me just see if I can understand the premise. The premise is that as technology evolves, it becomes closer and closer to being humanoid or human as such, and somehow there's a melding, and we become Borg-like in some way.
We meld with our creation.
Off the top of my head, what I would suspect is that the emotionality that people exhibit in daily life might be tempered by the intervention of machines. And I don't mean, when I say intervention, I don't really mean that it's an outside one, but even internally, I guess when I think of machines, and perhaps this is because I'm old-fashioned, I think of machines as being the opposite of impassioned. And so the notion of a machine that's melded with a human being would imply to me that the outcome would be a colder and more intellectual being rather than an emotional and a passionate being. So if we take that premise and we look at it long term, it would imply a completely different human race. I would guess that to think back to our discussion earlier about religion, one would think that, for example, the wars and the conflicts that result out of passions, the hatreds of races, hatreds of others because they're different, would tend to fall away because these man-machine creations, or whatever they are, this would tend to be more uniform, would tend to be more, I guess uniform is the word that comes to mind, and those conflicts that flow out of being different would not occur. So I would assume that, say, let's say that this will happen in the next 100 years, I would assume that in the following 100 years, the world would see much less conflict, would see much more harmony. And I'm not sure whether that would be good or bad, but there would be a lot more uniformity, a lot more, sounds like a boring world, less, issues will be resolved based on logic. Issues that we look at today, like I don't know, like global warming, issues that have emotional component to them, nations that want to advance as opposed to nations who want to maintain their advantage. All those kinds of things will be resolved logically. I'm not sure what that logic would be, but then I'm not a man-machine, so I wouldn't know. But I would expect that those kinds of things would basically fall away, and you would have a world that is a lot more calm, peaceful, uniform. Maybe a little boring too.
Yeah, but I would hope it would be peaceful.
Yes, that's a good one to hope for.